Okay, this video will walk you through page 1 first, and then depending on how long it is, I might create a second video, not quite sure yet. Please read the screen here. I'm going to go fairly quickly through this and the answer page. You can just pause it as needed. Starting with problem number 1, very simple problem to do. This is an addition. When you have an addition sign before parentheses, you can just drop it. So really what we end up with is just a string of terms, 3y minus 5 plus 2y minus 8. We're looking to combine like terms. The like terms are the 3y and the 2y. They're both positive. It gives me 5y. A negative 5 and a negative 8 combine to give me a negative 13. There's my answer, done with problem 1. In problem 2, add a page there. Problem 2, again, a plus sign in front of parentheses doesn't change a whole lot, so we can just drop that plus sign. 4x squared minus 3x minus 7 plus 3x squared minus 2x plus 3. And again, now we're just looking for like terms to combine. There are some like terms, 7x squared. Here's some more like terms, the minus 3x and the minus 2x combined to give me a minus 5x. And lastly, we have a minus 7 and a plus 3 combined to give me a minus 4. There's your answer for problem 2. Problem 3, again, the plus in front of parentheses. We're just looking for like terms. This one's a little bit different. A squared b squared minus ab plus 5. And again, without the parentheses, plus a squared b squared plus ab minus 3. I say it's different only because we're using two variables now. And so to look for like terms with two variables, make sure that after the coefficient, and these coefficients are invisible ones, everything else in that term has to look exactly the same after the coefficient. If it does, they're like terms. We have 1a squared b squared plus 1a squared b squared gives me 2a squared b squared. And then I'm going to move on. I've got a negative ab and a positive ab. They will drop out. They'll cancel each other out. And then the plus 5 minus 3 will combine to give me a plus 2. So there's my answer. Problem number 4, when we get to that one, that's the first one where we see a negative sign in front of the parentheses, which means my first order of business here is to just copy the first one as is. There's nothing to change there. And now I'm going to distribute the minus sign, so it becomes a negative 9, a negative 5b, and a negative b squared. And I always recommend you write it out because it helps you to see what's going on. Like terms, well, the constant 3 and the constant negative 9 will give me a negative 6. The plus 2b combines with the minus 5b to give me a negative 3b. And then the last part, plus b squared minus b squared, will drop out. My answer is negative 6 minus 3b. If I were to put it in standard form, I would be putting the negative 3b first and then the minus 6. And we're going to keep the sign with the term it belongs with. So if you start moving things around, keep the sign with the term. In problem number 5, again, a plus, which means all I have to worry about is combining like terms. Y squared minus y minus 7 plus 3 minus 2y plus 3y squared. Looking for like terms, where do we see them? Y squared and plus 3y squared. And just to emphasize, if I were to use my highlighter and I cover up the coefficients, the invisible 1 there and the positive 3 there, then everything else looks exactly the same in those two underlined green terms, so I can combine them. A plus 1 and a plus 3 combine to give me a plus 4y squared. With the y terms, I've got a negative y and a negative 2y. Combine a negative invisible 1 with a negative 2, you get a negative 3y. Negative 7, positive 3 combines to give me a negative 4. There's my answer. First 5 are done. Let's move on. In the next part, I'm solving. Solving is clean up, move, and undo. When I'm solving a linear equation, I like to clean up the left and clean up the right. If you look at the left, it's already clean, there's nothing you can do. If you look at the right, it's already clean, there's nothing you can do. That means it's time to move things around. Moving things around means terms with x's will go to one side. So I'll move the 4x to the other side by subtracting it. And if I subtract it in one place, I got to subtract it in the other. I'm going to move the constants to the right-hand side, and I'll do that by subtracting it. And you're free to do both of those on the same line, but I do want you to show me that you've done both of those. And I want you to draw the equal sign, and then we'll work down the column. 7x minus 4x is 3x. These drop out. These drop out. 23 minus 5 is 18. That's the moving step. Now we go to the undo. Undo what? Well, x is being multiplied by 3. We undo multiplication with division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And that gives me x is equal to 6. Same procedure for problem number 7. We'll look to clean up the left, but it already is. We'll look to clean up the right, but it already is. That means it's time to move things around. I like to keep my variables on the left, so by just out of personal preference, I'm always going to end up with the variable terms on the left, which means I'll be moving my constant terms to the right. Subtract 7 on both sides. Big equal sign. Please be sure you're showing that. Column by column, this disappears. This becomes negative 5a. This disappears. This becomes 25. What's happening to a? It's being multiplied by negative 5. We'll undo by dividing by negative 5, and I end up with a is equal to negative 5. Problem number 8 is an inequality, but same idea. I'm going to begin by cleaning up and then moving and then undoing with a little bit of a consideration at the end. Nothing to clean up on the left, nothing to clean up on the right. We'll start moving. I'll move this x to the other side. I will move this 3 to the other side, to the right-hand side. And let's go column by column. This will leave me an x. This drops out. This drops out. This leaves me a 12. I'm going to bring down that inequality sign. And in this case, there's nothing to undo. X is already by itself. There's nothing happening to it. It's just an invisible one. So we are done with the problem right here. Problem number 9. 9y plus 2 is as cleaned up as it gets. Less than or equal to 7y. I'm going to move, actually in this one, I think a lot of you I saw in class what you did is you move the 9y to the other side because that's really a one-step deal, so we'll go ahead and do that. That'll bring the 2 down here. Less than or equal to 7 minus 9 is a negative 2y. Now I'm going to see what's happening to the y. It's being multiplied by negative 2, so I'll undo that with division by negative 2. And you want to remember anytime you divide by a negative, or if you multiply by a negative, you'll have to flip that sign over. So let's finish the problem up. 2 over negative 2 is negative 1. I'm going to change that sign, flip it over because I divided by that negative, that black negative 2, and this will give me a y on the side, and that's a perfectly acceptable answer. That is correct, but on my answer key you will see I flipped it around, so I just want to show you how to flip things around the proper way. If I instead put y on the left and I put the minus 1 on the right, I'm free to do that, but I have to make sure that inequality stays pointing to the y. I'm not dividing here. I'm just moving things from left to right and right to left. So I'm going to keep that inequality pointing to the y. And so my final answer that you saw on the answer key looked like that. Problem number 10. Now here's where we first encounter some cleanup. It's b minus 1 minus 3b minus 4 is equal to b. There's nothing to clean up on the right, but this left-hand side needs some cleanup. Well, what do I mean by that? I'm going to distribute that negative. It'll leave me with b minus 1 minus 3b plus 4 is equal to b. I still have more cleanup here. I'm going to combine this term and this term. It'll give me a negative 2b. I'm going to combine this term with this term. It'll give me a plus 3. Now I'll bring down the rest of the algebra. We always bring down what we're not changing. And some moving to take place here. So let's move that minus 3 to the other side. And now that's going to put and I want to bring my b's back here. You don't have to do it this way. You could have chosen to bring the minus 2b to the other side. There's not a problem with that. But in any case, show me what you're doing. Show me that you're doing the same thing to both sides. This should always be balanced like this on either side of the equal sign. And now we'll go column by column. This will give me a negative 3b when I combine those. This drops out. This drops out. This gives me a negative 3. Don't forget to bring down your equal sign. It's time to undo what's happening to b. It's being multiplied by negative 3. Then we'll divide by negative 3. And that'll leave me with a b equals a positive 1 in this case. Well, not solving anymore on the back side on top. We're just simplifying to a to the 5th b squared. Good workout in exponents and parentheses. I think that's a cubed b squared. I hope it's a cubed. And so now what we have is a monomial times a monomial. That's all that's going on here. And that's very easy to multiply two monomials. We'll just do it piece by piece. What do I mean piece by piece? Take the coefficients out front. 2 times 7 is 14. We've got an a to the 5th times a to the 3rd. We add those exponents, gives me a to the 8th. We've got a b to the 2nd times b to the 2nd. We add those exponents, gives me b to the 4th. Notice that we don't change the a. We had two a's to start with, we still have an a. We had two b's to start with, we still have a b. There's your answer. Problem number 12, I won't change the page here. I've got 6xy squared, and I'm squaring that. Well, when you see a monomial, again, another monomial, we see a monomial in parentheses and it has an exponent out here, that means that exponent is going to have to apply to each part of that monomial. The 6 is going to get squared, the x is going to get squared, and the y squared as a unit is going to get squared. So it's 6 squared is 36. The x when you square it is now x squared. And the y, we're going to take the shortcut. You could call it y squared times y squared and come up with y to the 4th. Or you could just say 2 times 2 is equal to 4 here. So that's your little shortcut that says if you're raising something to a power and it's already got an exponent on it, you can just multiply those two numbers. Okay, x to the 3rd times x to the 3rd would give you x to the 6th. New page here for problem number 13. Oh, love that minus sign out there because it's very easy to get messed up on this. You see this square here only applies to what's in parentheses. This square has nothing to do with that minus sign, and every time we're working algebra and we're not changing anything, we'll just bring it along for the ride. Now here's your monomial, so that 2 is going to apply to each part of the monomial. 3 squared gives me a 9. C to the 4th, when you square it, here's what's going on. 4 times 2 here is c to the 8th. So your answer in this case is definitely a negative number. Problem number 14. I hope it looks like you want to distribute it. You should be distributing it because this is not like number 11. This has a binomial going on inside the parentheses. And so it's not just take care of the coefficients and take care of each piece. You have to actually distribute this. You've got a monomial out front. You're going to distribute. Let's take a look at how the distribution goes. The monomial times the first term gives you 2x squared y squared. The monomial times the second term, oh, that's a positive times a negative. That's going to be a negative. X squared y to the 3rd. Remember, this is an invisible 1, so when you're multiplying those two monomials, 1 plus 2 gives you the 3. And there's nothing to combine here. You always want to check that. Can't combine that, so we'll stop right there, move on to the next problem. 15, simple FOIL. Most of you know how to do this very well. A minus 5 times a plus 4. First terms give you a squared. Outer terms plus 4a. Inner terms minus 5a. Last terms minus 20. And usually when you're foiling, you can combine the middle terms. Not always, but a lot of times it happens. A squared minus a minus 20 is your result. Simple FOIL. But don't FOIL until you're sure that there's multiplication in between, otherwise you'll waste a lot of time. In number 16, waste a lot of time and get no credit. Number 16, first terms a squared, outer terms negative 3a, inner terms positive 3a, last terms negative 9, but notice that these two are going to drop out. So you get a squared minus 9, and that would be factored by the difference of two squares. That's where you come up with that. Number 17 is different from number 16. Be careful, watch your signs. Whenever you see a binomial, that's what's in here, and you're squaring it, then I always want you to begin by immediately writing it out twice. And I'm going to be looking for that. And if you want any kind of credit for that problem, that's what I need to see on your paper. FOIL it out, you'll get a squared, outer terms plus 3a, inner terms plus 3a, last terms plus 9, a squared plus 6a plus 9 is your result. Moving on to number 18. I wanted to add a page there. Problem number 18. Here we have a binomial, that's two terms, times a trinomial, and that's three terms. So we're going to have a whole lot more than the four terms we saw with foiling. We'll take this red y and we'll distribute it once, twice, three times. And let's see that result. Y cubed for the first hoop, negative 2y squared for the second hoop, and a plus y for the third hoop. Now we're going to go back and we're going to take a negative 1, and I'm glad that's negative. When I distribute, I am not going to be distributing a 1, I'm distributing a negative 1. I'm going to distribute it once, twice, three times. My first blue hoop gives me a negative y squared. My second blue hoop gives me a positive 2y. Watch your signs, it's a negative and a negative. My third blue hoop gives me a negative 1. Now you notice we had two terms times three terms. Take a look at how many terms you got. 6. If you were to multiply four terms times four terms, you'd start out with 16 terms. I'm not going to do that to you. It's a little ugly. Okay, so let's combine what we can. You're always going to check for that. I got a negative 2y squared and a negative y squared. That'll give me a negative 3y squared. I've got a plus y and a plus 2y. That'll give me a plus 3y. And I've got a couple of other things left over that can't be combined, so I'll just bring those down and put them in their proper order in my answer, and we're good to go. Probably one of the tougher ones you had on the sheet. Number 19. Number 19 is not tough, but it is tricky. You see, the first thing I have to do, PEMDAS says we take care of multiplications before we do additions. So as tempting as it is to maybe think of that as a binomial, it's not. There's a monomial and there's a multiplication right in here that we're going to take care of. So we'll bring down the 3a, we'll bring down the plus sign, and we'll start distributing our 4, or we'll think of it as distributing a plus 4. Plus 4 times 2a gives me plus 8a. Plus 4 times negative 3 gives me negative 12. And we always want to check to see if there's anything that can be combined. That'll be combined to give me an 11a minus 12. There's your answer. Good to go. Number 20, I've already started it. I took the first distribution, got the red result, and then I distributed the minus 5. And you want to take care of those things first. Distributed the minus 5 and I got the black result. And now I can look at that and I can combine two like terms there. I end up with an 8y squared. These two will combine to give me a negative 7y, and I'll bring down that minus 10. Everything's in order. We're good to go. In number 21, well, just like I asked you to write this out twice, I see a 3 here, so I'm going to ask you to write this out 3 times. And I think that you can figure out, and I won't go through the detail of this, but this is a simple FOIL. By the time you finish this FOIL, you'll have x squared minus 4x plus 4. And then you're going to have to continue by bringing down that last part of it and complete that last multiplication. That's no different than if I were to say to you 2 times 3 times 4. You'd say, oh, 2 times 3 is 6, and then I got to multiply by 4 and get 24. We're doing the exact same thing down here. We're going to take those first two and multiply them out. When we're finished, we'll have to multiply by that last one. Well, now this is a little bit of a reverse of number 18. I can take this x squared, because I have my 3 terms first, and I'll have 2 hoops. Distribute it twice. I'll get x cubed minus 2x squared. Then I'll take this negative 4x and I'll distribute it twice. two hoops. First hoop gives me a negative 4x squared. Second hoop gives me a positive 8x. And then I'm going to take this last term and distribute it twice. The idea is take every term in the first parentheses and distribute it over every term in the second parentheses. Plus 4x and then a negative 8. And we're always going to combine at the end. X cubed will stay as is. Looks like this one and this one can be put together and get a negative 6x squared. Looks like this and this can be put together, give me a plus 12x, and I'll bring down the minus 8. And there you go for problem 21. 3 more to go. Now we're back to solving, which means we're going to find whatever number x is, and it happens to tell us that each x is an integer here. That's nice. Don't always expect it to work out that way. We're back to clean up the left and then clean up the right. Cleaning up the left, I'm going to write 3a plus 7. There's a negative there, so we're going to be distributing it. So that's a minus a plus 1 is equal to no cleanup on the right. Oh, still more cleanup on the left. Right here and right here combines to a 2a. And then here and here combines to a plus 8. Now all my cleanup is done. Now I'm ready to start moving things around. I'm going to leave the 2a there. I'm going to move the minus. I'm going to move the 8. Show me that you're doing that on both sides. I'm looking for balance here. Show me the line. Work column by column. That disappears. 14 minus 8 is 6. There's your moving all done. And now it's time to undo this multiplication here. We undo multiplication with division. A is equal to 3. And that's my answer. And this does say to check your work. I'm going to skip the checks for this video. Number 23. Ooh, a cleanup. Well, we've got a FOIL going on the left. X plus 3, x plus 3. I'll do these separately. That'll give me x squared. I'm going to take a shortcut here. Plus 6x plus 9 is equal to, now on the right hand side it was an x minus 5 times an x minus 5. Got another FOIL going on over there. We'd end up with an x squared minus 10x plus 25. It's now time to move. Oh, wait a minute. This is a quadratic equation. Oh, I thought I had all linear equations there. Wow. Okay, that's a little bit different then. Let's look at the fact that we have x squared on both sides, and when you go to move one or the other, that's going to drop out, and that's handy. I'm liking that. Okay, so I'm going to leave my x's on this side, which means I'll be adding 10x to both sides. And I'm going to be moving the plus 9 over to the other side, which means I'll be subtracting 9. And again, look at the balance here. We're doing the exact same thing on both sides of the equal sign. I could actually tuck that equal sign in there so it's a little more obvious. Now we'll just work column by column. These are dropping out. This gives me 16x, and these are dropping out. Going to the other side, these are dropping out. These are dropping out, and this is giving me 25 minus 19, minus 9 is 16. So now my moving is all done, and now it's time to undo the multiplication with division. And I get x is equal to 1. Checking means we'd go back and we'd substitute that 1 in there. So I think I'm going to check this one really quickly. It should be pretty easy. 1 plus 3 squared equals 1 minus 5 squared. Let's see if that's true. That gives me 4 squared is equal to negative 4 squared. That gives me 16 equals 16. Bingo, we're good to go. Last problem on your sheet. Works with y's. Cleanup on the left. Well, let me do some cleanup as I rewrite here just to save some video time. Y squared plus 2y. Now I'm distributing a negative y here, so I get negative y squared plus 2y. On the other side, there is no cleanup to do. Okay, still got to clean up the red and the blue. Let's put together what we can. Y squared minus y squared is dropping out. That's handy. I like that. Plus 2y gives me plus 4y equals 20 minus y. Now its cleanup is all done. Left is clean, right is clean. Let's start moving. I'm going to add a y to both sides. Again, looking for the balance there. Column by column, this gives me 5y is equal to 20, and that drops out. Moving is all done. It's time to undo multiplication. We undo multiplication with division. I get y is equal to 4, and you could check that as well. I'm going to create a separate video for some of the review work for day 1 assignment with the radicals. So look for that online. It'll be later in the evening.